Today I'm going to teach you how to design your very own chess pawn for 3D printing in TinkerCAD. So the first step I'm going to take is changing my perspective mode or viewing mode to orthographic or flat, just because my personal preference is to design in this viewing mode. Then I'm going to drag a cylinder onto the work plane. I'm going to set it to be 25 millimeters by 25 millimeters, and then I'm going to set its height to be 5 millimeters. Then I'm going to drag another cylinder on top of the first cylinder. I'm going to set this cylinder to be 17 millimeters by 17 millimeters by 10 millimeters tall. So I'm going to change that 20 millimeters, that's default, to 10 millimeters. And now I'm going to grab another cylinder, drag it on top of the second cylinder. I'm going to set this one to be 7 millimeters by 7 millimeters by 15 millimeters tall. So change that default 20 millimeters to 15 millimeters. And you can see we're starting to get the basic shape of the pawn kind of laid out. Now what we're going to do is we're going to grab another cylinder and drag it on top of the third cylinder, and we're going to set its dimensions to be 15 millimeters by 15 millimeters by 3 millimeters tall. So change that default 20 millimeters to 3 millimeters. And now you can really see the shape of our pawn coming together. So now the next step is dragging this sphere on top. So I'm going to drag a sphere onto my fourth cylinder, and I'm going to set the size of my sphere to be 15 millimeters by 15 millimeters by 15 millimeters. Now, in order to actually attach this sphere, I'm going to drag it down to 30 millimeters. And now I have the shapes that are going to make up my pawn. I simply need to add these chamfers, and then I need to align everything. So in order to add the chamfers, I'm just going to use cones. So I'm going to drag a cone on top of the first cylinder, and I'm going to set its size, at least on the bottom, to be exactly the same as I set my cylinder's size to be. So I've got that cone right there, and then I'm simply going to change the height until it interfaces with everything else in a way that's satisfying. So for me, 10 millimeters is a good height for the cone. Now I'm going to do this same thing again. I'm going to drag a cone on top of the second cylinder. I'm going to check how large the second cylinder is. It's 17 by 17 millimeters. So I'm going to change my cone to be 17 by 17 millimeters. And now I'm going to try to line them both up. And I'm going to change the height until it's something satisfying. 10 looks like too much. 5 looks like it might be too little. So I'm going to go somewhere between 6 and 7. I'm going to stick with 6. And now for the last step, we have to fix this overhang, because if we have this overhang when we 3D print the pawn, it's going to be problematic and we're going to need support material. So to avoid using support material, I'm going to drag a cone onto the bottom of, this is the fourth cylinder, and we're going to do the same thing again. I'm going to check the diameter of the cylinder itself, then I'm going to set the diameter of the cone to the same, or the size of the cone to the same. And now I'm going to look at it from the front. I'm going to try to line it up a little bit, and then I'm going to drag the height until it is satisfying. This is being problematic. So instead of dragging the height like that, oh, the height's at the top. So I'm going to have to set it to 15 millimeters, move it up 5 millimeters. Look at this. That feels like it's too much, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to maybe set it to 10 millimeters, move it up another 5 millimeters, look at it from the side again, and that looks pretty good to me. So now you notice we've kind of got pieces all over the place, and we want to align them so that they are in one cohesive shape. So we're going to go to a front view, we're going to drag a box over everything. You can see the stuff that's blue outlined is all selected. Now that we have it all selected, we're going to select the align tool, and we're going to align everything in both the X and the Y axes. So now we have our pawn, and if we want to actually be able to print this, we'll have to group it like so, and now we have a pawn. So it looks like my other pawn, I actually had the sphere a little higher up, so I'm going to go in, I'm going to move the sphere up 1 millimeter, 2 millimeters. That looks good. So now the sphere is 32 millimeters above the work plane. Select everything again, group it again, and we once again have our pawn. But say, for example, you want to make a replacement pawn, and this pawn, which is 47 millimeters high by 25 by 25 millimeters in X and Y, is too big. So you have two options. You can either ungroup everything and you can change the sizes from measurements you take from a pawn you're trying to copy exactly, or you can just take some general measurements from your pawn. Say the diameter of your pawn is 20 millimeters, you can just change the diameter of this pawn to 20 millimeters and say the height of your pawn is 30 millimeters. Well, now you have a 20 millimeter by 20 millimeter by 30 millimeter pawn, and you didn't have to reshape everything individually, you just reshaped everything as a whole. So that's how you would do that. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Bye.